All right. Here it is, the very first ever Jock Market happy hour. I'm Rick Game, and that right there, Joe Idoni breaking down the most important stretch of Jock Market for the first time ever. Buddy, how are you doing, and how stoked are you for this?
Yo, I'm doing great. Aloha. It's the start of the 2021 season, and it's Jock Market season, baby. Let's go.
From the words of Chad, LFG, let's go. Let's go. Let's do it. We are all right. This show, Joe, I don't know how you would describe this. So here's our vision for this. We're going to spend the next hour with 45 minutes of it being in the IPO phase of Jock Market for this week's cash market, or for this week's free contest for the Sentry Tournament of Champions. And we're going to talk strategy, player pricing, all that good stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to try to, it's obviously going to evolve a little bit over time, but that's exactly what we're going to do. A little bit of strategy. We're going to talk about some guys that we like, give some reasons, and get in the chat a little bit too, right?
Yeah, we're going to get in the chat. So if there are questions, concerns, comments, whatever you want, throw it in the chat. We can see them. We can throw up those comments into the stream so everybody can see. And if you haven't downloaded Jock Market, actually, let me back up, Joe. If you don't know what Jock Market is, let's start there. Stock Market DFS. I have had a killer time playing this for the past couple of months because you can buy athletes and golfers for real dollars, watch their share price move throughout the week, and get paid out at the end. It's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's definitely something very different and unique from sort of fantasy and the betting side, but it still incorporates all of those elements of, you know, the basic idea is buy low and sell high, right? Just like in those.
There you go. So the way that this works, and we're going to show you a lot of really cool tools for this week, and I'll just show you one right now. We've got a special Jock Market dashboard, Joe. This is something. So this is actually feeding in live IPO prices. So we're in the IPO phase right now. If you want to bid up on as many shares of these golfers at whatever price that you want, now is the time. Would you agree with me that this is the most valuable time to start getting your bids in?
100%. This is the time, in all honesty, the way that I've kind of approached Jock Market is this is when I do my buying. And then it's rare that I will sort of buy and sell while the tournament is going on live. I try to keep an update on those prices, but in reality, I think this is where you're going to find the most value, because typically if you get a guy at a good price, immediately once that IPO closes, you will see your margins and your profitability kind of go up the way it's set up currently.
Yeah, that's right, guys. We are obviously doing something new right now. If you like this, if you want to support this, which I think you should, competition in the fantasy space is always better. Do us a favor, hit the like button, download Jock Market. It's available on iPhones. It's available on Android. And we have a special offer, Joe, because of course we do. We have a special promo code, POWER20. It's on the bottom of the screen right now. A $20 deposit bonus, get a little extra cash to buy a few extra shares. It's probably no surprise that Bryson DeChambeau, the most expensive golfer right now, currently at 576. Do you think it's going to hold? Is Bryson going to end IPO with the highest price, Joe?
I would say that it's not a huge surprise, but I would definitely say by the time this IPO closes, you're going to see your number 1, 2, and 3 guys that are on most of the betting boards up at the top there, which is going to be Dustin, it's going to be Justin Thomas, and it's going to be John Rahm. So I wouldn't expect Bryson to hold there, but I see why he's a very popular pick this week.
For sure. And the prices are continuing to move. In fact, believe it or not, Webb Simpson has just taken over. This little dashboard's pretty cool. So I want to talk through what some of the numbers mean here, because for me, Joe, once it clicked in my brain, right? Like once all like the buying and the selling and the ask price and all that stuff, I was like, once it clicked for me, that's when this became so much better. So the way that we have this laid out, and you can follow along on your phone. I know Joe's going to be throwing bids in. I'm going to have to pull him back, grab his attention throughout the course of this. But current price is pretty simple. This is the current bid price. You can bid as high as you want on these golfers. There are payouts that are based on their finishing position. We'll get to more on that in a second. But I think the big thing that always comes up for me, Joe, is, you don't have to bid, Webb Simpson's $5.80 right now. You don't have to bid $5.81, right? If you really like
Correct.
Webb Simpson, you can bid $9, and it's only going to increase your actual bid 1 cent at a time as more bids roll in. So there's going to be a flurry of bids coming in at the end of IPO. So I like to kind of put in those larger proxy bids. Do you find yourself doing that?
100%. Yeah. If you're bidding like 20 cents above what the current asking price is, by the time this IPO closes, you're likely not going to get any shares. There's a finite number of these things. Now they can add more shares. I know in talking to them as they see more buys coming in. But that said, what I like to do is kind of create a target price in my mind, and you can look based on the break-even point in the finish position where you think that's going to fall. If you like Webb Simpson this week and you think he's going to finish in 9th place or better, for instance, let me look over here at my sheet. So 9th place this week is going to cash you $10 a share. If you think he's going to finish in 9th or better and you're comfortable with that, then you can go ahead and bid $10 a share on him now. It may increase his current price incrementally. And the big thing to understand here is that if he finishes at $8.50 per share, you still don't have to pay that full price of 10. You're going to go back down to that $8.50 mark, and they will credit your account back with the excess $1.50 per share, and you'll be able to use that in other ways.
That's right. We've got a question here or a comment here on YouTube from a bigger Colts fan 497 says, do you guys think you should have a smaller or a larger portfolio? Now, Joe, I imagine this question is for maybe the free market, the free contest. There's a $250 contest on Jock Market right now where you take your allowance of chips and you develop a portfolio, and you are getting paid out in that free roll contest according to how much your portfolio is worth at the end and where you stack up with everyone else. I personally am a bit of I like the sweat, I like the risk. I usually just pick a few guys and go all in on them if I'm playing it. But how do you do it, Joe? Do you build out a large portfolio or a small one?
I'm the same way. So mostly right now I stick to the cash markets, but I will say that those sort of free contests are how I sort of got my feet wet into Jock Market. You get a better understanding of how things work, approximately where you should be bidding, when you should be bidding, which is a big thing in this to kind of figure out. So if you're new to this, I would recommend, going in those contests and trying to kind of figure things out on the run for the first couple weeks before you step into the cash market. But to answer your question, I'm the same way. 2, 3, 4, maximum maybe 5 guys, and I try to grab a number of shares on each of them so that at the end of the week, it's either boom or bust.
Here, I have a couple of, I've got some graphics together for this show, so I hope this is okay. I'm just going to throw down at the bottom real quick, just for some examples here. Here are Justin Thomas's recent results, and I can actually, while we're looking at that, I can actually pull them up here on our dashboard that the Jock Market crew built for us, which is so awesome. And look at some of these recent results. So here's Justin Thomas. For example, over the course of the last 5 weeks, these are the 5 cash markets that Justin Thomas has participated in. And you can see his IPO price has been somewhere between $7.50 and $11.61 in each of the last 5 events. He was actually a little bit of a negative ROI at Mayakoba because he finished 12th there. Mm-hmm. He lost your money a bit at the CJ Cup, but outside of that, he's been a solid performer. 60% increase, 60% ROI at the Masters, 167 at the Zozo Championship. He was $7.50. Are you kidding me? And 83% return on your investment at the Tour Championship. So overall, this guy, obviously, big-time performer.
Big time. And I actually totaled those together. So if you add those all up and you played him in every single one of the last 5 events, if you bought shares of Justin Thomas, you would be up 278% across the board per share. So he's been making people money. That's the bottom line.
The bottom line is he's been making you a lot of money. I actually figured out how to refresh this little guy down here. So let's get the most recent data flowing into the system. Bryson DeChambeau takes back the highest bid price at the moment. He's $6.01. This is what you said was going to happen, Joe. The big boys are coming up here. So now the top three most expensive golfers: Bryson DeChambeau, Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, and by the way, Xander Schauffele trying to get his name up into that mix as well. This is what we imagine is going to happen over the course of the next 35 minutes or so, which is crazy that we're doing this live, by the way. But like scrolling down a little bit, I'm looking at some of these middle targets. Scotty Scheffler's $4.15 right now. Patrick Cantlay finished fourth here last year, one shot out of the playoff, $4.26. Anybody in this range that we're going to keep an eye on for the next 35 minutes?
Yeah, 100%. I think Cantlay is one of the guys that I have definitely circled. Very bullish on Scotty Scheffler throughout really the 2021 season. I feel like he's going to make a big move. I like two guys that are next to each other a little bit further down. I have a lot of interest in Lanto this week. He played solid here last year. And seems to, I know you're a big Lanto guy, so he seems
you don't have to sell me on this. Yeah,
pretty positive. And then right below him there is Cam Smith. Who just, I mean, at this, we're really early in this, but he just seems very cheap in comparison to those guys around him at this particular time. Now, one thing to realize if this is your first sort of market in this is what Jock Market does, which I think is a great idea, is they don't close exactly at 9 p.m. So it's within like a 5-minute range there. So it can really be anywhere from like 8:55 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And the reason for that I think, without talking to them, is because they don't want the computer bots and the algorithms all of a sudden punching in a ton of shares at 8:59 and outbidding everyone. So it's a little bit of a guessing game in terms of when to place that final bid. So my advice would be don't wait till 8:59 to get that in. Give yourself a couple minutes of buffer room there.
Yeah, I have to do the East Coast time to West Coast time translation in my head because it's closing at 6 o'clock here, but it's 9 o'clock Eastern. Yep. just before. And one of the biggest tips that I can give new players to this is turn on your push notifications. You're gonna blow up in the final 15 minutes before IPO closes, but you want to know if someone just outbid you and you need to hop in and buy some shares back because you could get in a bidding war. I've done this and I'm interested to see how this show affects the market, Joe.
I was thinking about that too. I may hold a couple guys back, but we'll see.
No, you got to give us everybody. I mean, it's so interesting because there's been times where I talked about this like on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock on my live show, and I'd be talking about it. And I'd talk about a guy, and I'd come back 5 minminutes later, and I'd check, and he jumped up $3 in the IPO, and I'm like, oh my god, you guys are outbidding me. I wonder if we're going to see a lot of that this week. We're going to get into the slate a little bit more, but I do want to continue because I know there's a lot of new people. I know that there is just again, it has to click for you. So I'm going to continue to try to roll through, some of these graphics at the bottom. Right now I'm running Dustin Johnson's recent results at the bottom, try to get some notable guys here. And what you'll notice, and I'll pull them up on the logs as well here. I mean, he's just obviously been on such an incredible roll. Now he's only participated in 3 cash markets. Obviously hasn't played a whole lot. $10, $9, and $9.02. I think this is going to be the most expensive we've ever seen Dustin Johnson. I think he's going to finish over $10 tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look at those returns. So the Masters, obviously his IPO price closed at $10. When that event ended, he paid out $25 per share. Same with the Tour Championship is at $9 and paid out $25 per share. So those ROIs are ridiculous, and he is on a career tear right now. Can he continue though? What are your thoughts on that? Off this little bit of a layover, and he's had a couple, maybe 5-6 weeks at home. Do you think he's going to come right back out and storm the course?
Yeah, if there's anybody who can take 3.5 weeks off, not touch their clubs, and figure it out, it's Dustin Johnson. We've seen that countless times throughout his career. He'll probably shoot like 2 under on Thursday and then go nuclear and shoot like 8 under on Friday. Get him. So like that was that rusty, right? He did it at Houston. He tested positive for COVID. Remember, he comes back, he plays Houston. He was rusty for 9 holes. He played him like 2 over and went absolutely scorching hot after that. If there are particular players that you want us to chat about, throw them in the chat. We'll go through. We got some time here. We've got some time until this bad boy closes, and we'll continue to show different logs or anything else that you guys want to go through. But I'm just trying to think, there's probably so many new players this week, Joe. And I really liked your comment about dipping your toe into, especially the free market. But I think the bigger point is when you get into the cash market, you can spend as much or as little as you want. Right. I mean, you can buy 1 share of a golfer for $3 and watch that over the course of the week, or you can trade it once this tournament starts, or you can spend $5,000. I think I had Dave on my pod. I guess so. At this point, it was like a month ago, and Dave from Jock Market, and he was saying that someone dropped like 3,600 in an IPO. And what's great about that is it's all the same. Right? Like if I have 1 share of someone and you have 9 shares or 100 shares of them or whatever it is, like we're both rooting for the same thing. You kind of can't take it away from me. Like small bankrolls can participate with big bankrolls.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what's awesome about it is your price per share is paying out the same, like you said, whether you have 1 or whether you have 25 shares. So if you're new to it, tread lightly. Like we don't want you to destroy your bankroll in that free $20 we gave you in the first week. So take it easy, get an understanding of kind of how this thing works, and then start capitalizing.
Here's a question from Chris. He says, is there a safety net you can feel secure? Is there a safety net you feel can secure a golfer you like? Oh, okay, got it. How much higher than the current high bid? All right, so here's what I would do, and this might be wrong, and I'm going to pull back up our little tool here. So give me 1 second here, Chris. Okay, so we've got current prices. Xander Schauffele retook the lead. He's now the most expensive golfer at $6.37. Here's what's interesting, right? The fair value, and I don't think we've jumped into this quite enough. So what Jock Market does, this is really cool. I love this idea. I actually am going to steal this idea for like a little fun little contest I'm going to run probably on my site. But here's what they do. They take the win odds, the top 5, top 10, top 20, I think the miss the cut odds. I forget everything that goes into it. But basically what you can do, Joe, is create essentially an implied market. Right. And say, okay, on average, essentially is what they're doing is Xander Schauffele is going to finish 12.9. That's the position, 12th position, just below 13th. And that price, according to, 13th place position would be $7.55. So the easy way to do this is to say, do I think Xander is going to finish inside the top 12? Or do I think he's going to finish outside the top 13? If I think he's going to finish outside the top 13, then I don't want to pay any more than $7.55 because he's not going to return anything to me, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And what's also another thing to remember is like if you click on each player's profile while you're in the Jock Market app, it will give you not only a suggested price, but it will also give you what they call a break-even price. So when you place a bid and you can kind of scroll over and pick the amount that you want to put on him, it will tell you whether he needs to finish in 13th or 12th or 11th in order to gain that value. What I also really love about Jock Market is, let's just take Xander, for instance. I'm going to throw out an arbitrary number. Let's say I bid and have shares of Xander at $10 a share. Xander doesn't play great this week and doesn't hit that mark of finishing 6th or better to return a profit for me. But if he finishes 8th, I'm not losing everything, right? So he could still end up paying, when it finishes out, maybe $8.50. So I have a little bit of a loss there, but it's not so much like DraftKings where you can just go in with $300 for the week and get totally wiped out. Even if you have a bad week, you typically still see some sort of returns in your wallet, your Jock Market wallet for the following weeks. So you don't get totally wiped out.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I mean, I'd be impressed. It's hard to lose everything, right? Even if a guy, that you paid $7 for finishes at 3, which would be a pretty big drop, you're still gonna, not lose it all. So you were right. I got so excited, I forgot where my brain was going there. Those in-app positions are so critical, because the answer to Chris's question is what I would do is I would say, okay, here's Xander. Here's a guy that I think is going to finish, call it 9th or better. And now that's the price that I'm willing to pay. I can put that bid in right now, Chris, and let Jock Market do the thing where it raises my bid 1 cent every single time that it needs to be. And if I get outbid, that's fine, because that's as high as I was willing to go. So I set my number. I try not to get too caught up in the IPO flurry, but I'm guilty of it, Joe. I'm sure you are too. But that's the way I do it, is I kind of just try to set a number for each guy. If I get them, I get them. If not, I'll find somebody else.
You move on. Yep. That's it.
Okay. The other thing is, I want to start talking about this slate a little bit more, because now prices are starting to tick up. This is looking good. Justin Thomas, $6.40. Let's go to the bottom though, Joe. And do you have the payouts in front of you here? Because they're a little bit different. They're a little bit different for, this is only a field of 42. Remember that. It's not a normal field. So describe how the payouts are going to work this week.
So it's basically a sliding scale from $25 to $1 a share that goes from, obviously first place is going to pay out 25. All the guys at the bottom, I think 40th, 41st, and 42nd pay out $1 a share. It's a sliding scale in between there and sort of a spectrum. What's interesting this week is, for instance, in a 156-man field, right? If you want a guy and you think he's going to finish, and this is kind of how I try to approach it, if you think he's going to finish in the top third of that field, right, which is 52nd place out of 156 guys. 52nd place on a normal week pays out $3 a share. If you want him to finish, if you pick a guy to finish in the top third this week out of only 42, that's what, like 14th? That's paying out $7 a share. So you're seeing a little bit higher prices for guys this week than you normally would in a larger field, I think. But I also think there's a ton of value. Like, I think part of it is Jock Market guys wanted to get people excited about this and create some value for this first week. So I wouldn't hold too much back in the bankroll. I'm going to kind of go heavy this week. I like the odds.
All right, I'm going to bring you back to our little tool here. And what we'll do is I'll either create it, or I'll ask Dave to throw in the payouts in here. That might be one good thing that we could add, just so that it's a nice clean place for us to look where, hey, first is $25, so on and so forth. It's probably a good call. Let's start at the bottom here, because there are some guys. Oh man, I'm going to cost myself here. Brendan Todd is $2.45. I kind of love Brendan Todd this week. So I mean, he dealt with, here's his returns, and arguably not good. Only at Mayakoba did he return anything in the positive, but it was 109% return thanks to that T8. But this is by far the cheapest he's been as of right now. This can change in the next 20 minutes or so. But Brendan Todd, to me, through this kind of Masters Bermuda struggles, that was the broken toe time. That was the time where he's dealing with a lot. He's trying to walk around Augusta National. And the narrative we're going to get all week long, I guess what we've gotten all week, is that you have to be long to compete here, which I don't think is the case. As long as you hit it in the right side of the fairway, 60, 70-yard roll. Brendan Todd, he's down there with half the average of the field, and he's a good putter. So he's a guy right now, and we'll see if we'll keep an eye. Here's the guy we'll keep an eye on, Joe. We'll see if we can move the markets a little bit. Brendan Todd, $2.45 right now. We'll see what he closes at. We'll keep an eye on him over the course of the next couple minutes.
Sounds good.
Who else down here might be of note? I mean, Sergio's $3.06. You mentioned Lanto earlier. Ryan Palmer's always a favorite of mine. Is there anybody down? Let's call it sub $4. So maybe Sebastian Munoz and below, that really tickles your interest here.
So I have some interest, and I didn't really think that I was going to end up on this guy, but looking at the current prices, I like Abe Answer a little bit. I feel like that's a little bit of a cheap price for him, but I also would be interested in your thoughts. $2.85 on one Cameron Champ. Had a pretty good Masters performance. Is this a course? I know you mentioned the shorter hitters can really compete, but obviously length is always an advantage. A lot of these downhills, wider fairways, maybe the slower greens help him out a little bit with the putter. Some decent returns there, it looks like, the past couple of weeks. What do you think about Champ?
Yeah, so I think you also have to know what you're trying to accomplish, right? Because Champ to me is a very volatile golfer, but that might be what you want. You might want a guy at $4 who can go out and give you 170% return, or you might and also know that he could also lose 32% or lose 40%. So I think you just have to understand what type of player that he is. And you're seeing that from his game logs a little bit here, where he goes, 85% ROI at the Masters, 170 at the Zozo, and then he coughs a couple up at the Tour Championship and the CJ Cup. You're right. Distance is never going to be a negative. I don't think it's as important as everyone wants you to believe this week, but you're darn right. Like, if you give me distance over no distance, I'm taking the Bombers for sure. So that's kind of where I stand on Cam.
Another guy I've been really interested in this week, and just because the odds don't quite line up, or they weren't exactly fell where I thought they were going to, and he seems to be relatively cheap in comparison to those around him right now. But what are your thoughts on Adam Scott this week? Seems to be a little bit undervalued in all the markets, DraftKings, betting markets, and even here.
I think it's fair that he's undervalued.
Okay.
He's only played 6 times in the restart. He only played 6 times, but that win at the Genesis was like 10 starts away from him, or 10 starts ago for him. It's
Right.
such an interesting dynamic that we have no idea. So I think, again, he's one of these guys where people are going to take a stand on him. They're either going to say, oh, it's Adam Scott. I know what his long-term form is. I know that he has that sweet swing. I know that he just won at Genesis last year. And then other people are going to say, you know what? I'm out. I'm out on this. So I think he's pretty polarizing this week. So we're going to keep an eye. He's $4.22 right now. I think he's a pretty polarizing figure.
Okay.
There are, first of all, let's get a refresh here, because I already saw Brendan Todd moving up the board here. What did you do? All right, Brendan Todd's now $3. So Brendan Todd on the move. I would tell you this, and I'm gonna have my phone handy. I would probably pay. So $5.80 is his fair value. That is a fair value finish of 16.8. I'd probably pay $6.25 a share for Brendan Todd. I hope I don't have to. I hope you guys don't make me pay $6.25 for him, but that's probably the number that I would go to on Brendan Todd.
So he would have to finish, just so you know, it looks like around 16th place in order to pay that back at 625. What I'm seeing right now, and just looking at this live, is a ton of value at the top of the board.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are kind of holding off, but at $8.05, even for Justin Thomas, like right now, $8, basically $8 pays out 13th place. I'm pretty confident he's going to come in a little bit better than 13th this week. And if he should finish inside the top 5, you're looking at big payouts. Even 5th place is $16 a share, which is double his current asking price if you think he's going to top 5 this week. So interesting dynamic with this shorter field. I think things will start to level out here in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, here's the thing. So I'm just pulling up some kind of, some sports book numbers. So I'm trying to find a good example. Okay. So let me make sure. Okay. So Dustin Johnson is about a coin flip. Thanks to odds makers, he's about a coin flip to finish inside the top 5. His fair value number, 13th place, is $7.44. He's only $6.50. So what I think you're getting at, Joe, and what I think you're absolutely right on, is these big boys here, Thomas, probably Xander, Dustin, Bryson, Rahm. There is a lot of room on these guys to still make you a ton of money based on what their current prices are.
Totally, yeah, and I would even go up in the low teens in terms of with the hopes of not just immediately jumping it up by mentioning it. I would be pretty bullish on Justin Thomas this week, definitely.
That is the curse of being on the live show talking about guys that you like, is that you will not get good deals on anybody. I want to go back to the chat for a little bit, because I thought that we had Brian makes a really good point. These markets are going to go crazy in the last 5 minutes or so. So as we get closer to 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 for us here on the West Coast, these are going to get a bit more crazy. I've got a guy up on the screen here that I want to get your thoughts on, and it's Colin Morikawa. Obviously not a great finish for him at the end of 2020, where he loses 68% at the Zozo Championship. He loses 58% at the Masters. And with his current price, $5, it still feels like there's some hesitancy to buy back in.
I've definitely got a higher target on Morikawa this week. He's one of the guys that made my betting card this week, I believe at 25-1. So very bullish on Colin, especially this type of setup. And just it's an interesting week where you kind of have to what creeps into my mind, and I don't know if this is right or wrong take, but you have to think of what a guy's been doing the last 4 months. Is there a guy with 2-3 kids who's had a lot of family and holiday stuff going on? Or is it a guy like Colin Morikawa, which I believe has probably been grinding away on the practice range?
Can I tell you,
back dialed in?
Can I tell you that I know he's been grinding away at the Summit Club down the street? He's been out there like every single day. So I know he's getting dialed in, baby. Yeah.
Not surprised one bit. Yeah. And I think I know he doesn't play great on Bermuda greens, but I think the speed being a little slower this week. Look, we know he's a great wedge player. He plays great on short par fours, like nearly drivable par fours. It seems like he always scores really well on. So I would expect, where did he finish here last year? I would expect a good week from Colin.
I can pull that up for you. So, I mean, I'm going to try to refresh the dashboard more frequently, obviously, in the next 12 to 15 minutes here, because prices are moving. Justin Thomas, $8.61 currently. Dustin Johnson, $8.02. I'm still seeing this. This John Rahm at $6.20.
Yeah, what's going on?
He is, by all sports books accounts, he's either the second or third shortest odds. Is this just the fact that he's switched clubs and everyone's like hands off? I'll check him out next week.
I'm not huge buying into that narrative. I think he'll be fine. He's such a good player, but golf's one of those weird sports that are very different, where equipment makes such a difference. Like, you would never consider fading or going with a football player because they changed helmets, or really any other sport, a basketball player because they've got new shoes on. But the clubs are really just an extension of the hands, and they're what make or break you. So it could be a little bit of a learning curve for him. I think he'll be just fine. He's not going to put him in the bag if it's something he's not confident in. First
off, Austin Blasky says this is going to be the highest priced IPO with the live stream. I hope so. We'll see. It's going to be fun either way. There's going to be a flurry. I see Austin in the leaderboard on Jock Market all the time. It's good to have you in the chat. Thanks for coming out. It's so the thing with the clubs, and I've said this a couple of times this week already. We're going to know about John Rahm on Thursday. If he hits, what I'm worried about him is if he hits one squirrely shot on Thursday or Friday and it didn't come off his club the way he thought it did, and now he's kind of in his own head thinking, hey, maybe I got to get this dialed in. I got to get this adjusted a little bit. I got to get back to the range and try some things. That's what I'm worried about. If he comes out on Thursday and shoots like a 66, like, heads up, it's over, baby. Yeah,
it's on.
It is on from there. Let me give this a refresh. We'll see where we're at on the dashboard here, Joe. All right, Justin Thomas about to crack through $9, it looks like. So if we go by the rankings, Xander was the projected number one player heading into this. I don't think he's going to end that way. But obviously when you get him in a no-cut event, and at a place he's won before, a place that he barnstormed Gary Woodland on a Sunday, you got to think Xander's going to be, he's not going to stop here at $7.05, certainly.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't be, but I'm a little bit worried about the COVID situation with him. I know plenty of guys have sort of proven this theory wrong, DJ in particular, but I'm not sure DJ's human to begin with. But Xander, just because, look, I figure he took about a week and a half, 2 weeks off. He went to the Callaway photo shoot. All of a sudden, his girlfriend tests positive, I saw. Then he tests positive for COVID. I think that the timing of it all was probably right when he was going to start ramping up for this event, that he came down with this. He said he had some symptoms. He wasn't feeling great. He lost a little bit of weight. I'm just a little bit worried about him. And I just always feel, I love Xander, and I talked to Chad about this. I always, before the odds drop, I think to myself, I'm going to target Xander this week. And then they come in 2, 4, 6 points lower than I expected. The books always seem to give him a lot of respect for a reason. I have him ranked 6th in the field this week on my personal rankings. And I know Jock Market had him starting off at number 1. So I'm not as bullish on Xander.
We have smashed through we've smashed through the $9 mark. Justin Thomas is now through $9. Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau through $8. Xander Schauffele just got through $7. Let's focus on the middle tier here because there are still okay. So this is about the time where I start going, well, not yet, maybe in like 3 more minutes, I start going, okay, some of these guys are getting a little too expensive for me. Who's left? Who's down here? And I'm seeing names. I'm seeing Patrick Cantlay. He just won the Zozo Championship. I'm seeing Sung J M. Obviously, I'm a big fan. We still have Adam Scott. I don't think Adam Scott's numbers moved. He's been $4.22 since the last time we talked about him, like 8 minutes ago. So there are some guys here. Who in particular would you start circling in this $4.50 to $5 range?
You know, I'm looking right at $5 right now and at Tony Finau.
All right, let's look at him.
Let's see what his recent results are. I'm sure they haven't been great, but he's on the precipice of this win, and I've kind of bought into the narrative that maybe he doesn't have the killer instinct, so to speak, but I think things are going to turn for Tony, and I'm hoping that it happens this year. You can only finish like top 7 in the FedEx Cup so many times without getting that win. He got the special invite here, hoping that he takes sort of a little bit of advantage of it and just seems like a valuable price. I think he could easily come in here, and he doesn't have to win to return value at $5 a share. He's got to come in like the top 18 places. So I think that's a good number for him. We're in the final 10 minutes here, so this could end like in the next 5 minutes by all accounts. So now's the time, if you're watching us, to make your buys.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep refreshing this because I think we're gonna start to see a lot of movement here. Yeah, here we go. We've got some movement from the middle. Tony Finau just jumped up 25 cents, so good job on that, Joe. We'll credit you for that one. I was trying to. Here we go. Chad made a really good point in the chat here, and I want to address this because he said, keep in mind it's about scoring and not finishing position. So technically speaking, the way that you are slotted in as a golfer is based on birdies, bogeys. It's like the box score stats. Now, I would say very often it is very, very close to the actual finishing position in the tournament. But you do want to check out, as with any game that you're going to play, the rules, the settings, the scoring system. Get used to all of that before you go too crazy, or just go crazy and figure it out later. What do I know, right?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'm not even 100% sure. Like, are there other elements that are similar to DraftKings, like birdie streaks, or is it just about, like, how do they figure it out?
No, I'm pretty sure it's just raw. I don't have it up in front of me here, but I'm pretty sure it's just raw kind of like box score stats. So you've got like your, birdies, your bogeys will give you negatives, your pars and stuff like that. It very, I looked at it a bit in depth a couple of months ago, and it was almost identical to finishing position, but you certainly want to be aware of that. Look who's catching steam. Patrick Reed. He's won here.
Yeah, I'm big on Reed this week.
Is that you? Are you bidding? Are you bidding on him right now? Are you causing this? $7.11 he's at right now?
No. I just took a couple of shares of somebody else though that we've mentioned earlier. I'll talk about him here in about 8 minutes.
I'll talk about him in about 1 minute. All right. How about this? So we got a comment here, and this is a really good comment because I just noticed it. Xander now. This is from Augur 1788. Xander priced outside the top 10 now. Joe, would you consider him at that value? Well, or I guess even here's a better question. If you're out on Xander, there's a price for everybody, right? There's a price for everybody. Totally. What price would get you back in on Xander?
So, gosh, I think he just went up to third, so he's $8.05 that I'm looking at live now on my phone. I think anything under $10 is pretty good for Xander this week. That would imply that to return value on that price, he's got to finish in 9th or better, which I think has good chances of. That said, I think he's at $8 now a share. Within the next couple minutes, we're going to see that jump above that point.
Oh boy, let me give this a refresh here. Okay, we've cracked through $10. Justin Thomas, $10.01. Here we go. We are now, we are at any point and minutes away from this IPO closing. So it is going to be an absolute flurry. You should get your bids in right now. Joe's working on his bids. I'm going to start working on mine. Justin Thomas has cracked through $10. Bryson Xander and DJ all over 8. I still think there's a look at, I can't say it enough. Colin Morikaw's at $6. That's a joke. That is a joke. If you set everybody even for long-term form, right? What have these guys been doing for 3.5 weeks? Who the hell knows? So you're going to give me a 3-time PGA Tour winner, a major champion at $6 with legit winning upside? You guys are kidding me.
He's flying up, man. $7 a share right now.
Is he coming?
He's moving it. His team is rolling.
Let's get an update. There he is. Okay. 688 on mine. So I'll refresh here in a second. Cantlay up over 7. Hideki up over 7. Let's scroll down. Here comes Brendan Todd flying up the board.
Sanjay is pretty cheap too right now. He's at 550. Like, our people don't remember what just happened at the Masters. What he just did, he was unbelievable there. I've seen some comps this week to like the Wyndham and some of the other courses with Bermuda grass greens that he plays really well regularly. I think that he's a guy where we can be pretty confident that has spent some time at the driving range the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, I mean, he basically lives there. So we'll give this a refresh here. Yeah, Sungjae flying up a little bit. I actually thought here's a big name. He just moved on me. Sergio's $4.08. I'm not particularly a big Sergio guy, but again, there's a price for everything. My God, $4.08. I think I can get on that, can't you?
What's really cool, exactly. What's really cool about Jock Market is a lot of guys that you would not consider on the betting boards.
Yeah.
In DraftKings, all of a sudden you're looking at 855 and you're like, maybe this guy, like you said, there's a price for everybody. Exactly.
This is the moment, I'm feeling it in my heart right now, the moment where you don't want to get stuck without shares and you're like, there's a price for everybody. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's Brian Gay's week. Maybe it's Robert Streb's week. And I'm
sitting here trying to do a show and not end up over.
This is phenomenal. Okay, so let's give this a refresh here. Okay, Dustin Johnson trying to close the gap on Justin Thomas. Let's talk about that. Which one of these guys ends up as the highest price golfer? Is it JT or is it Dustin Johnson?
I think JT is going to hold him off. I have him as my number 1 ranked player. That said, they're 6 cents apart. I can definitely see either of them. Still very, very surprised that Jon Rahm is 5th on the list and not right there with those other 2 big horses.
I agree with you. The Rahm here at $9. I mean, I guess he's the same price as Bryson DeChambeau, but this to me is a really strong value as we close in the final potential moment. I mean, we're literally this could end at any second. We are moments away from this IPO closing. Jon Rahm at $9 feels like a steal. I mean, Victor Hovland's down here. This is a really great stretch. Let me refresh. Tell me who you're bidding on, Joe. I can see you. All bidding.
Right, so right now I'm bidding on more shares of. I'm just going to say it really slowly. Patrick Cantlay. I love Patrick Cantlay this week, so I just took him. He's still $7.55. In order to pay that off, he's got to finish 14th or better. Pretty confident he's going to do that this week and come into the season with some form. Dealt with some weird injuries last year and some little like minor things, but I think this is a year he's ready to capitalize. And coming off that win at the it slipped my mind, the Zozo. I think it was a big confidence booster for him getting back in that winner's circle, and he's ready to make a move this year.
Okay, so we got Jon Rahm to the top. Jon Rahm, $10.50. I'm going to give it another refresh. I'm gonna try to stay on top of this. And Joe, I'm probably a bit behind you, so you have to let me know when this actually closes. Justin Thomas has jumped up to $11.01. So we are neck and neck at the top. I'm happy to see that the big boys, JT, Rahm, DeChambeau, Dustin Johnson, they're all over $10. They are all increasing in price. Still leaves Hideki. Hideki has never finished outside the top 4 in 3 starts. He's $7.27. He's $4 behind some of these guys at the top. Is that nuts?
That's nuts. Yeah, Hideki is being very slept on, I think, everywhere this week. Okay, we've got IPO end soon coming up. It's gonna happen any second. Let me know when it goes. Guys.
We are in the thick of it. There is still plenty of value at the bottom. This is the time where I would be firing down here at the bottom, because all you need, if it is a Kevin Na T13, he's probably doubled his money, right? I mean, there's just so much value down there. You're not asking these guys to do a whole lot. Let me give it another refresh. Okay,
wow, Mark Leishman is really cheap. He's 38th on the board right now, $3.70.
$3.70.
Seems like he doesn't belong with these other guys: Landry, Taylor, Thompson, Sink around him. He really sticks out there to me.
He's been bad recently, but he has great form
True.
around Kapalua. We are getting really close here. DJ and Justin Thomas neck and neck, both at $11.55 and $11.53. This is what Scott Hansen would call the witching hour. This is where all
it closed. IPO's closed. There it goes, folks.
All right, let's see our final prices here. All right, first of all, Joe, just give everybody a sense of what you were going through in those final moments there.
It's a rush, man. My heart's beating. You don't really know who are still left in your orders tab. It takes a second for them to move over into your holdings, but that's what it's all about. That right there, that final 5 minutes is the reason we thought it was so cool to do this show and like engage with people and the people to see it and feel it and understand what it's like. Very fun, very exciting, electric.
All right. I'm going to refresh this one more time and I'm going to pull up the final bid prices here. Make sure I'm all dialed up here.
Yep.
So let's talk about this. Let's recap this a little bit. Let me get there we go.
Oh, man.
All right. So, wow. We were wrong. Neither Justin Thomas or Dustin Johnson beat the other one. They both closed at $11.55. Is that what you're seeing on the app too? We have the same numbers here.
I'm not seeing that just yet.
Okay, so
I don't have that. I only see like the ask price right now, which is a little bit off. I'm not seeing what they closed.
Okay, that's fine. So I assume this is right. I was like,
I think that's right too. That sounds right. And honestly, that's cheap for both those guys. I kind of wish I would have bid more on them. That's under their target price. Basically, if either one of those guys top fives, they're going to be a minimum $5 more per share. If they finish fifth, if they finish fourth, they're going to be $7 more per share. So I kind of wish I just would have stuck with those two guys looking back at it now and just hammered the top three and hope that one of them finished at $25 a share and take this thing down. Yeah, I got to tell you what, I mean, the top 3 or 4 guys feels like there's a lot of room for them to. A lot of room.
I agree. There. Biggest value. So this is really interesting to me because Xander closed at 955 and actually, odds makers came out this week and I was surprised like Monday morning that I think Bryson had like the 5th shortest odds when this thing opened up. And I was like surprised by that. This finishing, and this is what I kind of love about the market, is that it talks a lot to sentiment. And to see this go JT, DJ, Bryson, Rom, Schauffele, like that's, if I was the bookmaker, these are the guys that I probably would have made favorites in that order. So I like that the market, I think, kind of corrected itself a little bit and got Bryson up to where I believe that he should be. I think so too. I mean, he's right there with Rom. I mean, you look at, he's one of those guys that seems to really fluctuate on the odds boards. Like we saw last year with some people with some heavy futures tickets on Bryson, but then he comes into the Masters when he's playing well and was like, 6-1 to win the Masters. The heavy favorite coming into that event. But then there's other events where you can sneak like a 20, a 25 on Bryson. So he's a little bit more volatile, but 100% agree. Those are your top 5 players. And that's in maybe not that order, but the market worked itself out. I think it is, if you got shares of Hideki Matsuyama at $7.88.
Okay, or I might have some.
Do you have some?
I don't. I got outbid.
We're going to talk about your shares in a second.
Okay.
Or you got shares of Colin Morikawa at $7.55. Golf clap. I think you are in for a great week. I'm excited to see how those. I'm actually going to write. Actually, I guess I have this data now. How cool is it that we have this little tool here?
Yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome that they shared with us. One guy I'm seeing here, just looking at this list, that I don't think quite aligns with the betting odds, if you're looking at that and trying to take the bookmakers approach, is Daniel Berger is down there quite far. And he was more similar on the odds boards to like Morikawa, to like Victor Hovland, to like Tony Finau. He was right in that range with those guys. And you see him down a little bit lower, below Joaquin Niemann, below Sung J M. So he just kind of sticks out there as maybe a little value in terms of jock market price in relative to the odds board.
Do me a favor real quick if you're watching, hit the like button. It goes a long way for us. We're trying to build something
Please.
special over here. We'll be here every Wednesday. So do us a favor, hit the like button. Much appreciated. That is interesting about Daniel Berger. And it's so funny. He always kind of is, no matter what, whether it's pricing in DFS, whether it's odd makers, whether it's the jock market, Berger and Harris English seem to find a way to be next to each other. Like, I swear they're like the same golfer. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's so funny. A little bit further down the board, you had an eye. Oh, let's talk about your shares first, Joe.
Okay.
So what did you end up getting here? How many golfers?
So
how big's your portfolio? Because I think that's a question that's going to come up a lot as we do this over the course of the next.
I have 5 guys, but one guy, it's really 4 because one guy only ended up with 2 shares of. So I could list them right now. You want me to talk about them?
Yeah, please. Okay. Run through them real quick.
So I have the most shares in my portfolio of Patrick Cantlay. I got 39 shares of Cantlay at an average of $8 per share, meaning essentially he'd have to come in the top 13 in order to pay that back. My second biggest buy was Tony Finau. I got in at Tony Finau at $7.08 per share. He's going to have to come in the top 15 to pay that back. Sungjae Im, I got at $6.50 per share, 25 of Sungjae Im. The 2 shares I had were of Adam Scott, and then I've got 20 of our guy that we talked about, Sergio Garcia, at $4.15.
Okay, I'm going to run those across the bottom here so you guys can see. So Joe has shares of Cantlay, Finau, Sungjae Im, Adam Scott, and Sergio Garcia. Does that sound right?
That is correct.
Okay, so now the $1 million question, how do you feel about that? Like, was there anybody that you wanted to get that you couldn't?
Yes.
Or anybody that you ended up with that you might not have wanted?
So I really wanted Colin Morikawa, and I missed out on that, and I'm upset with myself because at $7.55 is easily a price that I would have paid. At different points through this, he was so cheap that I had bids in and had a lot of shares of him and was trying to make that final thing as IPO closes. But that's part of the fun of this. It's part of what it's all about. But that would be my biggest regret, along with also not bidding more on the guys at the top. I was very interested that I felt like they came in a lot lower than I projected a target price on them. I'm wondering if that's because people would rather buy penny stocks than buy Tesla right now for $600 a share. They'd rather buy something and have more shares of something for $2 in order for the boom or bust. But I feel like long-term wise, we all kind of missed a chance at those guys up there at the top.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think you're right in your assessment of what happened. And I noticed this a bit in NBA, and I think NFL a little bit too, is some of the big studs kind of get capped a little bit. And I think it's people, they're worried about either a really bad week where they lose $7 a share or something like that. But for the most part, I mean, if you're talking about Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, what's the worst that can happen? Right. They finish 29th, maybe out of 42. And then that would drop you to, I don't have the payouts in front of me, but like 29th would be a couple of bucks. It's right. I do think there is this sentiment of I would rather have a penny stock that does 150% increase as opposed to the potential that I lose more on a guy who's $10 or more.
Totally. And looking at John Rahm there, I really wish I would have been in on that, because he basically, in order to pay that back, he's got to finish inside the top 10 in order to pay back his share price. His top 10 odds, and I don't have them in front of me, are probably minus 200,
he's minus 175. Yeah.
Minus 175. Exactly. So obviously there's a very good chance of him coming inside the top 10 this week, and you basically could break even at the price that he ended at.
Looking a little bit further down, we're starting to get into those quote unquote penny stocks. Abraham Answer, $5.55, along with Cameron Champ. Could those guys be any more different from one another? Both
right.
They'd be like, if you combine them, they'd be a really great golfer. Adam Scott. So there's the sentiment on Adam Scott. And we thought about this. This was going to be pretty polarizing. He actually came in under his fair value, right? So his fair value based on all the odds and finishing position would have been $6.25. He comes in at $5.50. So there's the sentiment, which I honestly think the sentiment also helps you consider, I bet you tomorrow when this kicks off in DFS formats, Adam Scott's pretty low owned because this is literally people putting their money where their mouth is on what they feel about golfers.
You're right. And your points were very valid that there are a ton of unknowns about Adam Scott. He's kind of a little bit of a mysterious guy to begin with, and we just don't see him a lot. But he's so talented to have him in here priced below Kokrak and Ortiz is a little bit nuts to me.
I agree with you. Ryan Palmer, Lonto Griffin. The bottom of this is a bit lining up with the odds, except for I think Sergio. I think Sergio is the play, is the steal from down here.
I'm maybe happy about those Sergio. I like Kevin Na too a little bit this week. I thought about like his betting numbers pretty outrageous. Obviously, you have, I don't know if was it here last year maybe that he withdrew, and you have that potential, but he's one of those guys that can just get that scorching hot putter. I know in the team event, he like him and whoever. I don't even remember who he played with, but they went ridiculously low.
I was like, how are these two paired together? I forget who they played with, but yeah, he went nuts the first couple of days.
Yes, and his putter can get red hot, and he's a guy. I think he had a really good Masters performance too, kind of out of nowhere, maybe a top 18 or something there, but I could easily see squeaking his way inside like the top 15 this week, which would basically double his share price.
He played with Sean O'Hare. That was going to drive me crazy if I didn't look that up. Okay, so now let's turn our attention, because what people are looking at in their app right now is now they've got they've got a value built into some of these, right? You can actually see what kind of like the live value is. You're going to start to see now live trading. There's going to be bid prices. They're going to be ask prices. So you are by no means tied to these shares for the next 4 days, Joe. So what are maybe some tips, or how are you going to kind of approach the next 4 days in the Jock market?
Sure. So a couple things to just be aware of. If you put out that you're trying to sell some shares of a guy, that is basically an open bid until you cancel that order. And I kind of learned this the hard way one time, where I put out a bid and I wasn't quite paying attention, and my guy got really hot and started climbing the leaderboard, and someone stole these shares from me for dirt cheap. But that's one thing to keep in mind. Generally, my strategy, and I'm not saying this is the best strategy, is you like them for a reason, right? Hold them for all 4 days. There's so much volatility in hole to hole and even round to round that it can be a little bit dangerous if you get into buying and selling live as the thing comes on. That said, if you see some value on a guy and you can see next to him, so in the green is the bid price. That is what someone is willing to bid for that asset or that player. And 7 in the ask price next to it in red is what someone is willing to sell those shares for. So if you feel like you missed out on someone and see an ask price that you're willing to pay, by all means bid on as many shares as you want. And this all happens in real time throughout the week until the tournament finishes.
Yeah, the point about canceling your asks is brilliant, because I've done the same thing. I'm like, I'm done with this guy. Let me put him up for $3. He gets going. He has a hot front nine. Things start happening. Now he's probably valued at $4, and someone comes in and takes me up on all of those $3 share offers.
Yeah.
It's so much fun, because I think that golf is perfect for the Jock market. So I know a lot of people are. They're gonna live, and I made the mistake of this with Rory at the Masters, where I sold him in the middle of a round, and I just didn't like what was going on. And he played awesome over the next 3 days and cost me a bunch of money. But to me, I like to check in after every round. Yes. There are natural stopping points, right? After the first round, after the second, after the third. And that's really, in a world where you just saw the flurry, you just saw how crazy it was. You saw, like, that's time to be like, okay, deep breath. Let me assess the situation. Let me see who I think can move up. Like John Rahm, I made that example before. We're going to know about John Rahm on Thursday. I think there's some of these guys we're going to know about on Thursday or Friday, or we're going to see signs of guys being able to make a run on the weekend or something like that. So I use after the round to really dive deep into the numbers, and that's kind of how I take it from there.
Totally. And there's access to so many, I mean, your site for one, so many tools which will show you live in tournament stats, where if you dig a little bit deeper, sometimes you can find an edge. Just like you can find an edge in the betting markets live, you can find an edge on here. So look more into a guy's score, not necessarily what he just shot for the day or what he finishing his position was at. Figure out why. So did he lose a bunch of strokes putting? Did he blow one in the water and take a triple on one hole, but besides that played pretty well? Those are the types of people you can look to target and maybe find a live price that doesn't line up with their value if things sort of come back to normal and the medium level. Better the next 3 days. You can find an opportunity there.
There you go. I think that's perfectly said. Joe, this has been a blast. I did not know what to expect out of this, right? I mean, this for us is a brand new show and also a brand new concept, right? You know, we do live shows all the time. We've never done anything like this. So no. I enjoyed it. How do you think it went?
I think it went awesome. I mean, I'm partial, but I think it went pretty well. The amount of comments that I see coming in on the side of my screen here have been awesome and incredible. Anyone who's here right now, thank you so much for doing this. Please, like, my DMs are open. If you have any feedback for us on how we can improve, or if you like the show, let me know. We always appreciate that. But I thought it went awesome. Really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for next week already.
Yeah, guys, we're going to continue to evolve this, right? I'm going to try to just load in more graphics, and, you know, that we've got the dashboard. There's going to be upgrades. So we're trying to build something really cool here. If you'd like to support us, a way to do it, hit the like button. That goes a long way. If you haven't downloaded and deposited on Jock Market, what are you waiting for? What are you doing? Download it. Use the code POWER20, $20 deposit bonus for you in your account.
Yes.
Anything I'm missing?
No, that's it. Use the promo code. That helps us. That helps you. All you got to do is deposit $20, and they'll throw another $20 in there, so you'll have $40 in your account shortly. And use the money wisely, right? Use it wisely. Best of luck this week. Follow Joe on Twitter at Torpix. Follow me at RickRunGood. This has been the very first Jock Market Happy Hour. We'll be back at it again, same time next Wednesday. Mahalo. Good luck. Mahalo. Peace, guys. Thank you.